Welcome to the Blackout Podcast, where I get to talk to amazing people who do amazing things. And this one took too long, Tanya.
I'm sorry.
It took too long, but I'm super excited to have my friend. I remember, I'm just Tanya McHarg. I'm just going to introduce you before I start rambling on. Thanks for coming to the podcast
Thank you for having me.
I remember, I was, behind the camera and watching you talk to Fantanesh. I was like, oh, I need to talk to this woman. I just need to. It's what? 'Cause I need to. So, I mean, because one of the things I found out was you moved here, even though you're originally from here, but you worked in Calgary, I believe.
I was out in Alberta for 25 years.
Yeah. So, let's jump to Alberta. What were you doing in Alberta, and why did you decide to move back?
Well, so born and raised in St. John, New Brunswick, just a province over. Mm-hmm. And my dad's family was from here. So my paternal grandmother, Catherine Peters, was from Annapolis Royale. So that's the African Nova Scotian connection for me. Mm-hmm. But after I finished high school in St. John, I'm like, there's nothing here for me. Where am I going to go and be able to make some money and just live my life? And so, before I went to Alberta, though, I should say I went to Fredericton, New Brunswick, and did my first degree in sociology. And once I finished that, then I moved to Alberta. Sold everything I owned, packed my little car, and away I went.
Wow.
And
did you have something waiting for you in Alberta, or you just...
No.
Wow.
I mean, that's what you do when you're a kid, though.
Right.
You don't make any plans. You're just like, I'm going to go and tackle the world. And that's what I did, So, and fast forward 25 years, I stayed out there 25 years, another degree, a couple marriages, a couple kids, that sort of stuff. So yeah, I went out there just to, I was raised in poverty. Life was really hard for me growing up, and I wanted better for myself. And I'm like, everyone was moving to Alberta. So that's where I went. Yeah, I went to Alberta.
What was it? Oh, the oil, I guess.
Oil and gas, I guess, for some folks. I'm not into that.
Right.
I'm a social scientist. I like to study people. Mm-hmm. Why we do the things we do.
What was that something that was always fascinating to you?
Yes. Oh. I have always been someone that people confide in. Mm-hmm. Maybe just a lover of people, a healer. I mean, I'm not going to go so far to say I'm a healer at all, but at a very young age, people would come to me for healing, for my ear, for love and attention and just compassion. I don't know where that comes from. I'm sure my family of origin. I was always kind of the mediator and the voice of reason amongst my siblings. And even though I wasn't the oldest, not by any means, I was the youngest for a long time. Wow. Until my baby sister came. But it's just who I am.
How, we'll get back to that, but how long were you the baby before you had the baby sister?
8 years.
Oh, wow.
8 years.
Are you guys close?
Yes. Now, we weren't.
Oh.
When she was first born, I was not having it. I'm like, this baby needs to go away. I was used to being the center of my mom's world, right? Yeah. Yeah, so when she was born, I was like, So we weren't close for the longest time. And truth be told, it wasn't until I moved away to Alberta, so I was an adult, that I started to reach back out to siblings that I left behind her in particular. So now, I'm 47 now. Her and I, she's everything. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay, so I mean, people always reach out to you, and you're the one that is like this cool ice water that calms the nerves and all these things. But who was doing that for you?
Oh, what a good question. I mean, truth be told, I have been in therapy since I was 19. So, second year of university at St. Thomas University, things weren't going well for me here. Family of origin things, life was hard. And I had some traumas and demons that I had to work through. Because for me, I'm like, you don't want to go to school, do a sociology, social work degree, whatever, which is what I did, and then perpetuate your trauma and harm onto others, the people that you're supposed to be supporting.
Right.
That was important to me. So I'm like, I know I need to see a therapist and work through my own stuff so that I'm not projecting that onto others. So, like got into therapy really young and just, I'm like, I know I want to help people work through, yes, childhood trauma, but also racial trauma was always a passion of mine from really early on. Having a Black father and a white mother, I didn't know what it was when I was young, but I knew I didn't like how my father was treated. It bothered me.
What are some of the things that you noticed?
Listen, real talk. I had a conversation with him yesterday. He's 80. Edward McCarty. He's in St. John, New Brunswick. I had a conversation with him yesterday about one of my earliest memories of him being taken away violently in handcuffs by the police. I was 5.
Wow.
One of my very first core childhood memories.
Wow.
Is that one. And just, the stories that he's told me over the years of of not being able to get a mortgage and, when he called to see about an apartment for rent. Yep, it's available. It's available. That he gets there. He sees the look on the person's face, a white person, and sorry, it's rented. Not being,
when they see the last name, they can't tell until they see the person. Fuck.
So just all the stories of anti-Black racism that he has shared with me, from a really early age, especially once I got into high school too. Like when I got into high school, I was like, this is what I want to focus on. Studying the history of anti-Black racism in Canada, because it's not talked about, it's not taught in school. We go through kind of an indoctrination in school where they don't talk about any of that. They tell you the light and fluffy stuff, but I knew there was more. I knew there was more, so I just kept digging on it. And so the focus has always been addressing anti-Black racism, challenging it wherever I see it, pushing people to heal and be better humans, because we live under systems that are white supremacy, patriarchy, capitalism. They're oppressive and really mess us up. And so many of us we don't have a clue. It's like you're a fish in water and you don't even realize you're in the water. It's like those systems. And so many people have the blinders on and we're just going through the grind every day and we have no idea that we are sick. Spiritually, mentally, emotionally, we're not well. So
were these some of the things you knew or you found out through therapy?
What did I find out? Wow. That would take us way too long. I'll try to keep it real brief. What did I find out? I had to work out work through some things around abandonment for sure, because that 5-year-old little girl watching my father be taken away in handcuffs was devastating. That was devastating. And then not hearing from him again until I was 12. So my father and I were having a conversation yesterday. It was a teary conversation around why did you go away and not come back and get me? And really trying to figure out in therapy, I wonder what kind of woman. Not that I don't like the woman I've become. I'm really proud of the work that I have done on myself. It has been hard work, vulnerable work to work through your shame and your trauma and all of that stuff. And it's ongoing. I'm not done. I'm not healed. So I don't think we ever get there. Really, I'm in the process of just, working through it all. But so trying to work through like the abandonment issues. And knowing that, him leaving like that and divorcing him and my mom and him divorcing and him not coming back for me, it wasn't because I wasn't good enough. But when I was a 5-year-old little girl, I internalized that and told myself, I must not be a good girl because my dad left. And he's never come back for me. So he's 80 and we're still talking about that. And, and he's still apologizing and trying to show me something different. And, and we're not taking any time for granted because life is not guaranteed. I'm still here today. So is he. So we're talking about it and trying to heal that trauma and that relationship and just do better.
And it's an
So,
ongoing process.
It's an ongoing process of forgiving him because my father didn't have the love and safety and compassion and tenderness and parents that he needed.
It's one of those things where, you know, as you grow, you'll be like, oh, okay, makes sense why that person was like that,
Yeah.
you know?
Yes.
But then, is there not that other part that's like, but I've done this work on myself, you know?
No. I still really, for me, I spend a lot of time. What I've really figured out is, because when I was younger, I would blame my parents. My mom and my dad, I blamed them for all of the things that I didn't have. Living in government housing, using food banks all the time, not having parents to be able to pay for. I mean, I paid for 3 university degrees myself.
Wow.
You know, and I've been working a full-time job since I was 15 years old. I moved out in high school on my own for safety. Like, I needed to be safe and secure. So I have accomplished so much without the support of my parents early on. They're very supportive now. You know, yeah, I was angry for a long time, but I had to forgive them. And then I had to also learn to forgive myself for pushing myself so hard, for being so unloving towards myself, for not showing myself compassion and kindness. You know, I pushed myself really hard. But that's what the systems like condition us to do, to overwork. They exploit us. They, you know, so that's the work that I continue to do. And I am trying to also support others who are interested in doing the same work.
Okay, so let's jump back to, you know, Alberta. You're still caught up in the machine. I need to, you know, be able to buy a house and drive a car and stuff. Did that happen for you in Alberta?
Yes, it did. Yeah, it did. I started my social work career out there at the Calgary Drop-In and Rehabilitation Center. So it's the largest or second largest, short of one in Toronto, homeless shelter in Canada.
Oh, wow.
So every night we would house about 1,500 people. And so I was doing addiction and mental health work there.
That's a lot.
Yeah. That's how I started my social work career. So I did about 5 years there. And then I moved over to the Government of Alberta Children's Services.
That's even...
That's worse. That's worse. I did that. I worked as a caseworker. I worked as an investigator. And then I moved into leadership roles.
Did you have kids by that time?
Yes.
Was it difficult?
Very difficult.
Yeah.
Very difficult. You know, I had my first child with my first husband. Terrence is 23 now. He's still in Calgary. He was 3 at the time when I was just finishing my social work degree. He was 3. And I was working and going to school full time and just, doing what I had to do. I was very driven to ensure that I could give my children more than what my parents were able to give me. You know, so I was very driven. So I did my 5 years there. I started with the Government of Alberta. All was good until, I don't know, maybe 10 or 12 years in.
What happened?
I was trying to address anti-Black racism inside of that huge system. Because the overrepresentation of Indigenous and Black children in care is ridiculous. And I was tired and disgusted of sitting at tables, consulting different files that were coming to our attention with lots of other white folk who were very excited and happy to give supports and services to this white family and their children. But when I presented a case where the family was Indigenous or Black and I'm advocating, they don't want to give the services. No, it needs to be an apprehension. They need to come into foster care.
What would be the difference between what they do versus this apprehension thing?
Well, I found that they were much more likely to give supports and services. So financial support, in-home support, parenting support, counseling to the white children and families as opposed to the Indigenous and Black families.
Versus we'll take care of those people rather than give them the support. Is it kind of saying, I don't know if they would say this, but isn't that kind of saying that these people are not able to take care of themselves?
All of that.
Oh, okay.
I mean, the stereotypes were, you know, the things, I'll just real talk, the things that I would hear, that I've heard from police officers, other professionals, teachers, counselor, lots of different people. I mean, I've rubbed elbows with a lot of professionals over my career. I've been a social worker now for 22 years. But when I was out there, some of the things I've heard, like, oh, it's just another, like, I've heard a police officer say, you know, just another, like, drunk Indian calling in to describe an Indigenous individual, you know, that was calling in to get supports for their family. Oh, we went out to check it out and they were all drunk. You know, just the typical, like, that sort of garbage. And they would talk, you know, about, you know, Black folk as well, especially people who were new to the country. So a lot of African individuals who would come to our attention talk the way that some of the things that I heard and had to challenge, and would write emails to like upper executive and write emails to staff sergeants, and then be met with, Tanya, why do you need to always make it about race?
But
Tanya, why do you need to pull the race card? Tanya, why are you so angry? It honestly, it chewed me up and spit me out. I was exhausted. So after 17 years, I resigned.
Wow.
17 years I
Was it difficult to
resigned.
make that choice?
Oh, so hard. Like, I think part of it was so hard, but also healing. I can say that now. Because I was busy climbing up the corporate ladder, you know, making my money, taking care of my family, bought my house, my cars, like did my thing. Because I was raised in poverty, and so having material things was important to me. Until I had it and was able to provide for my kids, but was still so unfulfilled. That work and that system is so hugely flawed. It's so racist. It's so harmful. And the moral distress that I was experiencing, because I'm not interested in harming human beings, especially Black and brown people, you know, I'm like, no. And so I felt so much moral distress that I couldn't make this system change. It was too big. It was too much for just me. And there weren't enough allies and people who were willing to get behind me. Once in a while, someone would say to me behind closed doors, thanks for saying something at the table, Tanya, or thanks for sending that email. But no one was really able and willing, especially at higher levels, to really like go to bat with me and for me for the injustices that I was seeing.
Why do you think that was like
white supremacy? White supremacy. I mean, that is the history of not only children's services, but even social work. That is the history, right? So for me, it's about my work now is about decolonizing myself, decolonizing my practice, getting back to somatic and body and breath healing work, connecting back to the earth, you know, connecting back to song and dance and just praying and of what it means to be human, because we are really disconnected from that.
Did all this happen right after you left, or was there a process to get here?
Well, once I resigned from the Government of Alberta, there was a job here that I was offered and accepted, you know, and I knew I was done with the Government of Alberta. I had a family meeting with my husband and my 3 children. So my oldest daughter, Shelby's 26, and my middle son, Terrence, is 23, and my youngster is 13, Vaughn. And I said, you know, we called a family meeting, and I said, hey guys, this is the opportunity that's been presented to me. I'm thinking about taking it. It would mean moving to Nova Scotia. And my kids were like, oh my God, Mom, you have to do it. It's everything. Like, you know, so that was it. I mean, I sold my house within a week.
Holy shit.
Because it was at the peak of like the whole booming, like, you know, it was what year? 2022, March. So things were booming, and actually I had an offer on my house before we even listed it, before it went live. So
wow.
Yeah, so sold my house. We packed everything up in 2 shipping containers and drove across the country.
Holy shit.
Lived in an Airbnb for a couple of months and then bought a house in Lawrencetown. So yeah, it it all happened really quick.
The place you stay in Lawrencetown, was the decision easy to make? Did you check out other places before you?
That was the second house that I had made an offer on. The first house I had made an offer on was, and thank goodness I didn't get it because it was over in Beaverbank. And I remember saying to some of the people that I was working with, because they were like, I was so excited about moving to a province where there was such a strong Black presence. And I get over to Beaverbank and I went to the superstore there and I actually went in like looking around for all the Black folk and there was nobody. Everyone was white. And I said to my coworkers, where are all the Black people? And she's like, you moved to Beaverbank. That's the wrong, like, no, you're in the wrong area. So I said to my real estate agent, I'm like, I need to be closer to the ocean, first of all, and close to my office, which was on Victoria Road, so in Dartmouth. So she found me a house in Lawrencetown, which is right next to East Preston. So I'm like, very happy.
Yeah. No, that's true.
Yeah.
Okay. And so you made the move, brought your family down.
Yeah.
Because you had that job.
I worked as an executive director briefly for a nonprofit here. No, I'm a face-to-face front lines working with people. I'm not interested in pushing.
Isn't that more difficult though?
But it's my heart's work.
Right.
It doesn't feel difficult because I love it.
It is your thing. Yeah.
I love it. It doesn't feel like work. Sitting and talking, holding space for people to share their pain and their trauma and their healing. That is everything. I feel so privileged. It is not work.
Okay, so executive director, you're just in meetings all day pretty much.
Yep. I was an overpaid secretary. Really, and not to minimize, like, listen, the people who are executive directors, it's important work.
Yes.
It just wasn't for me.
Yeah. No, I totally get it. I have friends that do that and it's like a lot of work, but
it's a lot of work.
You're not talking to the people you're actually doing that thing for. So.
Yeah, no. And I was overworked. I couldn't support my staff the way I wanted to. I was in meetings constantly. I was constantly writing grant applications and trying to get money and no. I'm like, this is for somebody else, respectfully. So I did that for just under a year and I resigned. And I was heartbroken by that because I moved here for that job. It was a Black organization, and it wasn't for me. So now I'm like, okay, let me just take a step back. How can I do work, the heart-centered work that is so meaningful for me? So now, and launching my own business, I'm working as a consultant. So people are hiring me now to come out to community and put on meditation sessions for Black women in healing, doing presentations on PTSD, racial trauma, mental, emotional health, like that sort of stuff that I love. I did a workshop recently on keeping your wellness cup full in a racist world. How do we stay healthy, well, and heal ourselves while we live under these systems? Because they're not changing right now. It's still in place. Here we are. So,
I know this is a big, big workshop, but what are 2 or 3 things you can share from things we can do for that?
The top 3 things? I would say, number 1, we're built for connection. Like, we need each other.
Right.
I made a huge mistake trying to address anti-Black racism within a huge government system kind of on my own.
Right. Right.
And it, like I said earlier, it chewed me up and spit me out. And I was in a leadership role, And yes, I was able to advocate and support each individual family, but then I always worried when I wasn't on shift and was other supervisors, and I'd come in the next day, then there'd be there would be all kinds of apprehensions, and mostly of Black and brown people and children. It just caused me too much moral distress. So we lean on people who are like-minded, who love the same things that you do, who are passionate about, I'm passionate about, healing and all of that stuff. So I really surround myself with people who are interested in the same thing. I'm not interested in toxicity or just any of that stuff. If you're in the midst, you're someone who's still angry and you want to gossip and do all that stuff, respectfully go over there and do that. I'm not. I am interested in keeping my vibrational frequency at a certain place, and I invest in myself every day through meditation and journaling and exercise and yoga and walking in nature to keep myself, feeling mentally my best. So we're wired for connection. Find your tribe for sure. I'm all about meditation. Getting out of our minds and into our bodies. You have to, I just said this to my son. He has his first little girlfriend and came to me today for some advice about communication. And communication when the feelings are difficult. He's 13.
Right.
And I said to him, you know, it sounds like your girlfriend has some things that maybe she needs to work on. She might not be ready. She's only 13. But I'm like, just remember, no emotions that you have are wrong. Some feel good, some don't feel good, but they're all human. And if you're trying to work and heal on something, you have to feel it to heal it. We need to get out of our heads and into our bodies. So I spend a lot of time laying on the grass, breathing, listening to the birds, going to the ocean, walking, crying at the, whenever I go to the ocean, usually I end up crying.
Why?
Just, it feels so liberating and healing to breathe that air and to just connect with the planet and to just have such gratitude for the life that I have because it's a gift that I've been given, and I don't take it for granted.
Wow. So it's a good thing you leave where you leave then.
I don't need to drive very far to get to the ocean. Yeah,
okay,
it's beautiful.
So, and now what's your business called?
My business is called Healing on Purpose Therapeutic Services. So
basically, it has to be a conscious effort to want to heal. It just doesn't happen.
No. Yeah. It's for me, it's like, I remember someone saying to me recently, so I should just say before I go on. So right now I'm offering holistic life coaching services. I'm also available for hire for workshops and different talks, keynote speaking, workshops, things like that. My favorite obviously is to lead a group meditation, especially for a series that ABSW puts on, Black Women in Healing. I love that. Black Women Healing. So we got together a couple months ago at the Bald Center, 30 Black women, all laying down together, breathing, being present, and supporting each other to just heal. It was beautiful.
What is ABSW?
The Association of Black Social Workers.
Oh, right.
So it's a nonprofit here. Yeah. Okay. So that's my favorite thing to do. If I could just have a full-time job where I just lead Black folks through meditation. And I've been advocating for, we need the same for Black men, and we need the same for people who don't identify as men or women. I want to be truly inclusive and make space for people who are human beings and are interested in healing.
Yeah. So I guess, what is a typical session like?
So typically, just encouraging people to position their bodies in a way that feels good and liberating for them. I don't want you to be uncomfortable at all. And what I do is I do a combination of guiding through, breathing and concentrating on certain parts of your body. And then through that also, I put in some affirmations that are specifically for whatever group I'm working with. So I do a lot of affirmations for Black women to combat a lot of the negative stereotypes that we hear about ourselves. It could be anything around, skin tone, hair texture, the shape of our bodies, because we have so much. I just finished reading Fearing the Black Body. And we have so much shame around our bodies. And so really trying to work with people as well to release that. That is white supremacy. We need to be able to see it and name what it is so that we can go ahead and heal ourselves. So that's usually how I lead them.
Because, one thing I've learned is if you skirt around something, if you don't call it what that thing is, you're just wasting time.
Yeah. And I did say to someone recently, because they said to me, I've been going to counseling. It's not helpful. It's not doing anything. And I'm like, well, if you're expecting the therapist to fix you or to have the answers or to give you the answers or tell you what to do, number one, that's not really what therapy is, or it should be. For me, it's about holding space for people to be vulnerable, to work through their shame. And it's about asking questions and guiding them through the process so that they come up with their own answers. Because each of us knows instinctively what is right for us. but we're disconnected from our bodies. We don't listen to the gut feelings that we have because we're in here so much.
Yeah.
So for me, that's what good therapy is. Holding space for people to be human and not judging, you know?
Okay, it's always great talking to you or just listening to you talk. One of the ways you get your, I guess, your words or share your knowledge is through social media. How do you navigate that, being a Black woman?
It can be a lot. I have been kind of not on there as much through December. I kind of took December off to just be with myself. I spent a lot of time just meditating, journaling, taking naps. I have a number of books that I'm reading. Yeah, taking naps. Rest is Resistance is like my Bible. Have you read this book?
No.
Oh, I should have brought you a copy. You need this book. I recommend it to everyone. The two books I'm reading right now, rereading. So Rest is Resistance by Tricia Hersey. So she is she is the founder of the NAP ministry. She is a beautiful Black woman who is all about liberation, Black liberation in particular, but just liberation of humans, period. To break free from white supremacy, capitalism, and the grind, and get back to what it means to be a human being. Right? So that's the first one. The other book that I'm reading right now that is just, it's life-changing is The Myth of Normal. I forget his name. He's like a psychologist out of Vancouver. I want to say Goober. It starts with a G. Anyway, The Myth of Normal. Oh, wow, these two books go hand in hand.
So basically, what, like, normal is a myth, or what's the premise of the book?
The premise of the book really is to bring our attention to all the ways that we're living right now. You know, the grind, constantly overworking, overextending ourselves, not honoring ourselves, not being present, not being in touch with what it really means. We're not just here to work and die. That's not why human beings are here. But so many people, that's how we live. That's how I lived for the longest time. Until my body and mind finally said, no more.
Nope.
No more. I was exhausted.
What do you mean by your body and mind said no more?
Well, I developed a slew of symptoms.
Oh.
Right? Okay. Insomnia, depression, anxiety. My body was aching all the time. I had high blood pressure. And I had always been a healthy person. And all of a sudden, when I was with the Government of Alberta at the end of my career there, it was this was falling apart. It was falling. And my family and friends were saying to me, you're changing. Because I'm normally energetic and bubbly and I was not. I was not. And I was angry. I was angry at the system, and I was angry at myself at first I couldn't pull myself out of it. I was burnt out. And I found out, I know now, I was burnt out. I was dealing with vicarious trauma and PTSD from the work that I had been doing for so many years. I didn't know that.
Wow.
I didn't know that.
Wow.
And I went to my doctor and she's like, you need to find another job. This is enough. It's enough. You've heard, a person can only ingest so many traumatic stories from children. There's a limit, and when you're working in children's services in the capacity that I was, there should be like a 5-year limit maybe. I don't think it's a position that you really should be in for 17 years.
Wow.
And I didn't know my limits. I had always pushed myself hard and had accomplished so much.
So it's like,
I was very resilient. I thought this was just something else that I'm going to do.
And the thing about being like you is that one more rep, right? One more rep.
Yeah.
I've done this. And then when you look back at all these things you've accomplished, it's like, just one, just one moment.
Totally. Because I've never given up on anything.
Yeah.
Ever. So for me to quit my position after 17 years and to have my family and friends kind of in my ears like, are you crazy? You're going to quit your job? You'll never make that kind of money again. What about your pension? What about this? And I'm like, what about my mental health? What about my emotional health? Is really my answer. No job or position is worth your health. None. And really, if you are empty, if your cup is empty, your emotional cup is empty.
You have nothing to give.
You have nothing to give. I always say, what is in my cup is mine. What runneth over the cup is for everybody else.
Right.
Fill your cup first. It's not selfish. It's
If
self-full.
You know what? If you ever write a book, that should be the title.
Yeah.
Yeah, fill your cup first. And I think one thing, people usually see it as being selfish, but I'm like, it's not.
It's self-full.
It's not, because even in the, when you're playing the, like, you need to put your own oxygen mask.
Thank you.
Because, like, if
Yeah.
you want to be, you can't give what you don't have.
Thank you.
I'm like,
It's the truth.
Yeah.
It's the truth. And I said those words to my father yesterday when we were talking. I'm like, Dad, I recognize that you didn't have parents that nurtured and loved you. And so you didn't have it to give me as a little girl. And I understand. And I forgive you. And I forgive myself. And what I figured out is I'm giving those things to myself. What everybody else around me may give, my husband, my children, my friends, my family, that's kind of an extra. But I show myself love, compassion, kindness, all of those things first. That's up to me. I am responsible for me.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, we need to do a part 2, man. Because,
Part two?
yeah, this is. But one thing I said I was gonna do this year when I have a guest is someone asked me this question, or I read it somewhere, and it just blew my mind.
Oh.
What is something that happened before you were 17 that you feel like an experience you had before you were 17 that you feel plays a role in who you are today, or the things you are doing today?
Oh, that's a really great question.
I know.
That plays a role.
It's like, has this influence in who Tanya is today?
Sadly, it's really sad that the things that come to mind right off the top are kind of traumatic experiences, Because I do think of the one that I told you about my dad being arrested. That's, and leaving and me not talking to him again until I was 12, that abandonment stuff. And then I also think about even in school of being bullied because I had a black father. Kids would bully me.
Wow.
Call me Oreo and just all these crazy, names. But it was hurtful when I was a kid. And I remember thinking, I really don't like how racism feels. And I'm going to do everything that I can to educate people about it and address it and challenge it. So those experiences really definitely played a huge role because that theme is all through all 3 of my degrees. I wrote a huge thesis paper, 150-page paper that took me a year and a half to write on anti-Black racism within law enforcement. That was one of my first degrees. I'm like, that is... So definitely my experiences of being picked on and racism and stuff when I was a kid definitely impacted who I am now and really addressing injustice, period. Yes, anti-Black racism has always been my focus, but just injustice, period. I feel so strongly, I think that's probably why I stayed in children's services for so long too. I feel very strongly about the mistreatment of children. Very strongly. Do not play with my kids. I will come for you. Or any kid. But again, that comes from my own stuff, right? Yeah. So I'm not telling you, I guess, one in particular experience. Although in grade 1, there was a little girl who she wanted the swing I was on. And I said, no. And I was a quiet girl when I was young. And she took her, she had little, those little scissors in grade 1, they're just little scissors. She took her little scissors out. She had scissors on her on the playground. I was only in grade 1 and she cut one of my braids.
Whoa.
And I obviously was upset and I pushed her to the ground and the teacher came over and took me into the school and I got strapped.
Yeah, because
I got strapped.
That's insane.
Yeah. So those things, and there were many things that happened throughout my life, but I'm like, I didn't know what it was then and why I got strapped and not the little white girl. Obviously, as I got older, I'm like, okay, I know what that is.
Yeah. Those
things really shaped my, shaped me, and that I won't put up with any sort of injustice or discrimination. If that stuff happens in front of me, I'm gonna say something. I'm gonna say something.
Oh man, Tanya, that's insane. Okay, so I was like, so we'll talk about something heavy, but I'll lighten it up by doing something I learned.
Okay.
Okay, so there are numbers from 1 to 60.
Yeah.
You get to pick one number in your mind.
One number in my mind.
Okay. And I need you to write the number here.
What is this?
Magic. And then show it to the camera.
Okay.
But don't show it to me.
Don't show it to you. So the numbers are between what?
1 and 60. 1 and 60.
1 and 60.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
All right. Keep the number in mind and let them know what it is.
Okay. Okay.
Okay.
Here's my number.
You got it. Okay, cool. So going through these cards, I want you to tell me, is your number in this one? It can be more than one card though, so.
Yeah.
No.
No, it's not there.
Okay.
Nope.
This one, no. That was quick.
Nope.
What?
No, it's not there.
Here.
No. Oh, yes, it's there.
It's
and
here?
yes, it's there.
It's here and here. And not in any of these ones.
No, I don't see it in any of those. No.
Okay.
Did I mess up your game?
No, you didn't.
Oh, okay.
Is it 6?
Yeah.
There you go.
What? Is this magic? What's going on?
Magic. Tanya,
Those
thank
mind
you so
games.
much for coming to the
Thank you.
podcast
It was
today.
such a gift. Thank you so much.